Hello guys, I am back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Belle was from Terraria. So in the last video we talked about how, after starting his whole adventuring thing and also being a part of the Hestia Familia, he would start to go around the entire dungeon, basically killing some monsters. But after a while, apparently he's been followed. Mostly by adventurers that either want to jump him, tell him to join their familia instead, or generally just wondering why is he always super overpowered. So, after a while of chasing him, and also Bet trying to fight him, or at least, trying, in quotation marks, well, let's just say Bet was pretty not happy. But when Belle is basically, going around basically getting some monster cores, the rest of the Loki Familia would basically introduce themselves as Bet would challenge, Belle to a fight. And let's just say he failed miserably. So, after the fight, thanks to the help of Belle's, vampire knives, Belle would be victorious, as everybody was pretty much impressed. Not only that, he's considered, or more specifically, Bet is considered as the second most powerful member of the Loki Familia. And I mean the second. So, that makes him, that makes Belle pretty much overpowered. Sort of. I mean, the current number one, or the current most strongest, member in the Loki Familia is, after all, Ice. So, Ice really wants to challenge him. Currently with one of the twins, or more specifically Tione, is currently, let's just say, H for, not Izuku, I meant Belle, god damn it. Oh no. Alright, start the counter, boys. So, she's currently, kind of H for Belle, if you know what the H means. Currently with, I think her name was Rivia, yeah. With Rivia, she's pretty much impressed of his power, and finally for, a certain Finn over there, Finn was pretty impressed by his power as well. And after he leaves the dungeon, he would basically give the monster cores to the, guild, as the guild would think, what the fuck, how the fuck did he get all of these monster cores? And after he gets out of the guild, he would basically change into his, normal clothing, which, thanks to the vanity type thing, he just, does this. So, after doing that, he would also get something from his Gated Babylon style, portal. In this case, two different food items. One was a tropical smoothie, and one was a gigantic-ass pumpkin pie. Yeah. So, after, bringing them to Hestia, and Hestia trying out the tropical smoothie, which she was pretty, it's kind of similar to, Naruto and also his ramen, basically similar to that. But when she heard that the shop that supposedly made this drink sort of shut down, an obvious white lie, well, she was pretty disappointed. But thankfully, she can, get the recipe thanks to Belle basically getting it, or should I say, getting it from his Gate of Babylon style, portal. So, after doing that, Belle would decide to get some sleep because he's currently tired right now. And so, he would fall to sleep. So, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, Belle is currently, going around town, and he's currently, just minding his own business, because currently, it's his free day, so he doesn't need to go to the dungeon right now, and also doesn't need to go to the guild. So, currently, he's basically going around town, doing some, some stuff. But when he arrives at a little shop, which is mostly a shop about, baked goods, he would run into Aina, aka his little advisor, as she would say this. Oh, hello, Belle, as Belle would say this. Oh, hey, Aina. Wait for a second, Aina would say, oh, hey, Belle, as Belle would say this. Oh, hey, Aina, so what is it? As she would say this. Oh, I'm just getting some bread. And by the way, do you have any armor? I mean, most of the time you're not usually at the dungeon and you usually don't, wear armor. After, thinking of this, he remembers a few times in the dungeon. Most of the time, he doesn't really wear armor, or supposedly. In actuality, he was just, hiding his armor. Don't remember. I remember about what happened last episode, but either way, I'm just going to pretend like, I'm going to pretend that when she, first saw Belle, she saw him without his armor. So just imagine that. So I know would say, you're not wearing armor at all, like in the dungeon, and it's pretty dangerous. As Belle would say this. Oh, don't worry. Besides, I don't really need armor. Why would I need to wear armor if I'm not gonna get hit? When Ida heard that, she was not amused, as she would say this. Alright, tomorrow we're gonna go to a little shop so you can get some armor. As Belle would say this. Eh? After hearing this, Belle would basically get his order and would start to leave. And Ina would say, if you don't, wait for a second, god dang it again. If you don't join me in getting your new armor, I'll just have to drag you there. As Belle would say this, sure, fine. He would basically say that with a, sarcastic tone, as he would start to leave. So, back with his, goddess, aka, Hestia. Hestia would say this, so you're going with this girl, right, Belle? As Belle would say this, yeah, we're just gonna be getting myself some armor. Even though I mostly prefer to just wear this armor, as he would transform into it. As she would say this, but why is she going to give you some armor? I mean, you literally have that. As Belle would say this, well, you know how how it, disappears? Well, it's always here. As she would say this. What? As Belle would explain it how I, explained it in the last video. Like how it's basically like similar to a vanity type thing. As she would say, that's a bit complicated, but I sort of, understand it. As Belle would say this, yeah, so she thinks that I'm probably doing a little bit of a reckless thing by not wearing armor. As she would say this, I see. So, I guess you should probably go with her. As Belle would say this, wait, what? As she would say this, don't worry, besides, it will just be some good, exercise for you. After all, you're usually just lazing around most of the time when you're, not, doing any of your, quests in the dungeon. As Belle would say this. Fine, he would basically sigh as Belle would start to leave, going into the dungeon. So, not really dungeon, I meant, he would basically wait until the next day. So, the next day, as Belle was basically, waiting outside the church, as Belle would see Ina wearing casual clothing once again. She's basically wearing what you see here. Yeah, she's basically wearing that, as Belle would start to blush a little bit by the side of her. As she would say this, come on, let's go. As Belle would basically be dragged and be told that they're gonna be going into one of Hephaestus, or should I say the Hephaestus, main shop, which is the main shop of the, the Hephaestus Familia, so he can get some armor because, after getting a lot, and I mean a lot of, Valis from last time that he, did his job and, in the guild, well, let's just say he's pretty much loaded. And it sort of helped, Hestia, and I mean a lot. So, after, a while basically, going around the street, he would basically arrive at the main Hephaestus shop. So, after coming in, everybody would start to look at him because that's Belle, which they nicknamed him as the Black Knight. Mostly because of his armor. Because everybody in the Hephaestus Familia is pretty much interested in armor and weapons and things of that sort. And after seeing Belle's armor and sword, which is the, the Zenith, let's just say they were pretty interested. So, as Belle is being dragged towards, the main Hephaestus shop, or should I say Hephaestus' main shop, or, Hephaestus' forge, Hephaestus would look and see Belle, which she looks at him with a bit of suspicion. But she would look towards Aina as she would say this. Oh, hello there, Miss Aina. As she would say this. Ah, hello, Hephaestus. So, I want you to make some armor for Belle for me. Please? She would say as Belle would say this. Yeah, I've been forced to come here. I didn't really mean to get some armor. I mean, why would I? And besides, I already have my own. As, Hephaestus would remember his armor, which she saw prominently back when he was first introduced into the guild, and also, joining wait for a second, god damn it, when he first joined the Hestia Familia, which she was sort of happy, but sort of pretty, mad, because she wanted to have Belle. Mostly because, most of you guys decided to make her the main ship, which I'm pretty happy for. One of the best girls. Try and fight me for it. I'm going to stand my ground, and this girl, Hephaestus, she's best girl. You can't fight me on that. I would rather die standing on this hill. Anyway, so, after, Belle was introduced to Hephaestus, Hephaestus would say this. So, what type of armor do you want exactly? And even though you already have your armor, why? Just why, Aina? As she would say this. Wait, you have your own armor? Then why didn't you? As Belle would say this. Well, I don't really like to use it all that much. And besides, I prefer to hide it. As, she would basically sweat drop as Hephaestus would say, either way. So, what type of armor do you want exactly? As Belle would say this. How about something light and, pretty powerful? And, yeah, pretty light and pretty powerful, why not? As she would say this. Good, but I do need the materials, and I don't really have any materials on me right now. As Belle would say this. Oh, I know. As Belle would basically start to go outside of the shop, as both of them would start looking at each other, as they would say, why is Belle getting out? They would basically say to themselves, as Belle would basically go outside and go into an alleyway to get something from his Gate of Babylon style portal. Belle would basically get, a few ores, or more specifically, bars. In this case, you will have a full stack of 3 different types of bars. In this case, Demonite, Crimtane, and finally, what is that called? Adamantite, yeah. Wait for a second. So, after getting these bars, and they're a full stack, basically, 999 of each bar, and he would basically carry them in, what do you actually call it again? It's been a long time since I actually played the game. What is it? He would put them in a chest, which is just a normal ass it would be a normal chest, like the vanilla chest that you get in, Terraria. After getting back into the guild and everybody's seeing that he's, he's literally holding up a chest with just one hand, as he would put it on the floor of, Hephaestus' main forge. As she would say this. What is in the chest? As Belle would say this. Oh, this is going to be my payment and also my, the materials for the armor. And I don't really need the armor, but you can keep it, I guess. After hearing this, one of them specifically, what's her face? Yeah, Aina would say, yeah, well, this is a waste of a trip, she would say under her breath, as she would say this. So, what's inside the chest? Said, Hephaestus, as he would say this. Well, find out for yourself. After, opening up the chest, she would see weird-looking, materials. These look like metals to her, but they're weird-looking metals. She would basically pick up the, Crimtane, and she would say this. What is this? It feels like flesh, but it's also, as Belle would say this. Oh, I call it Crimtane. It's from my homeland, and apparently it's pretty popular. And apparently the reason why it's kind of like flesh is because, well, in a certain biome, it sort of serves as a type of flesh. It's basically like an armor-like flesh, basically. as she would say this. Interesting. She would basically start to tap on it, as it would start to almost wiggle a little bit, almost like actual flesh basically moving. As she would basically look at the, adamantite bars, as she would say this. What is this? It almost feels like, as she would start looking at the reddish color, as Belle would say this. Oh, it's called adamantite. Both of them would basically, look at him as Aphysis would drop the, bar as it breaks the floor of the, main forge. As she would say this. You mean adamantite? It's a rare metal and you have... As she would start counting all of the, bars of it, as she would say this. 999? As Belle would say this. Yeah, I sort of keep it by myself. And I prefer not to, show it most of the time. Mostly because, I'm not really in the mood to basically show all my tricks. As when she's, when she heard that, she would say, "Duh, hell." She would basically start to, her mind start to whirl as she would say, "What the heck is this kid? He has this much..." She would basically look back at Belle as Belle would say this. So, anyway, I should be leaving now. You can keep the medals if you want. As Belle would start to move away, going back to his, familiar, headquarters, which is just a rundown church. Both, Aina and, Hephaestus would start looking at the assorted medals as, Aina would say, "Anyway, I should be leaving now." She would basically say goodbye as Hephaestus, instead of having that shocked face now, it would change into a slight grin. As she would start to think, maybe I should keep him for myself for now. Or later. She would basically start to think in her mind as she would say, maybe I should keep him for myself. Or maybe even later. She would think even more. As after that, we go back to Belle. So, the next day has come as Belle is basically, going back in the dungeon once again. Basically killing monsters and getting monster cores. Belle has been doing this for a while now, but he would run into somebody. She seems to be running from something as Belle would bump into her. As Belle would say this, "Ow, what the?" As Belle would basically look back and see a girl with a, cloak on. More specifically, a beige coat. A pretty light beige coat to be more precise. And it seems to have a hood. As she would say this, "Oh, hello there." As Belle would say this, mind telling me why did you bump into me?" As she would say this, "Oh, I'm really sorry about that. I should be going now." As she would basically start to leave, as Belle would start to think, that was weird. As Belle would basically start to, look at himself and realize that one of his, wait for a second. He would feel something wrong. He would basically start looking around in his pockets, or I guess you could say approximately certainly almost similar to a pocket, as after looking around he would say, "Did she just stole my..." As Belle would remember, let's go to a flashback basically. So, Belle has been planning on maybe making an area that's basically the Crimson Biome. As Belle is basically putting, seeds of crimson, or I think that's the name of the item or the seeds. As Belle was basically, putting them in his pocket, as Belle would also remember that he's planning on maybe fighting a boss. So, Belle would decide to go for the... You probably know him, or her, or whatever you want to call it. You probably know it, and it's a famous boss from that game, otherwise known as the Eye of Cthulhu. So after getting a mysterious eye, he would basically put it in his pocket, as he would decide to fight it tonight after his whole, run in the dungeon. After Belle, wait for a second, god dang it. So, we go back to Belle in the present day, or present time, as Belle is basically, kind of angry, as you start to think, oh no, Oh, no, 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 no. As he would start to look around, thinking that it's probably going to spread now. But, thankfully, it's not in the dungeon. But you would start to think, if it's not in the dungeon, oh god. As currently we go back to the girl with the beige, hood. As she's basically going around town, as she would basically grab. She basically has both the eye and also the seeds of crimson, or, the seeds of crimson. As while she's looking in the, bag of, of seeds, she would say, those are just seeds. She would basically throw them as she would say, God dang it. And not only that, coincidentally, it's also nighttime. So after, looking at the eye, she would say, it's just a stupid eye. As after throwing it, well, let's just say they would hear boss music. Or at least Belle would hear boss music. And, Belle would see the notification, nearby him. It would say, the Eye of Cthulhu has been summoned. Or the Eye of Cthulhu is approaching. Belle would basically start to think, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, as he would basically start, going through the Gate of Babylon style, portal, as he would grab a, ice mirror and teleport back home. As it's currently nighttime, as Belle would say this, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, as he would see the crimson basically spreading all around the entire place, as several monsters would come out of there. Mostly the, brain spiders or whatever you want to call them, because I don't really remember what the actual names of the crimson, mobs. And they would see, I think the name of that specific monster was called, wait for it. He would see a lot of face monsters basically coming out of the ground and basically start terrorizing the place. Several, adventurers were alerted as you would start killing the monsters, but instead of, basically, just like typical monsters from their world, instead of, turning into dust and basically arriving back at the dungeon, they would just stay there as everybody would just be confused, thinking, those are not normal monsters, they would think in their minds, and they're not turning into monster cores, making it even more concerning. So, several adventures were currently, fighting, the monsters there, or should I say, the mobs, or, the enemies from Terraria, mostly the crimson ones, as Belle would basically start to, look at the side of him, or more specifically in his, vision, or, more specifically just him, he would see the health bar for the Eye of Cthulhu. Oh god. So, as Belle would basically see it, everybody would start to look over and they would see a large floating eye. Yeah, and it seems to not be focusing on the other adventurers, as the other adventurers would basically start to use their, normal weapons, but they did not do any damage. In fact, they're doing 1.000000000000000, basically multiple zeros and 1% damage. Yeah, that's how weak their weapons are. And even the Loki Familia is having a hard time, including the, what are their names? The, yeah, I think the name is the Freya Familia, yeah. So, currently, they're trying to fight off the, Eye of Cthulhu, but they're doing no damage. As Belle would basically appear out of nowhere, basically, clad in his armor, as Belle would walk over there and basically see a horde of monsters. More specifically, the Crimson ones and the Eye of Cthulhu himself, or itself. As currently, one stupid person decides, what is this thing? As he would look and see a floating heart. They would stab the heart and it would explode. As Belle would look over and see another boss, another boss's, life points or whatever you want to call it. And apparently, it's the Braided Cthulhu. As Belle would basically he would basically, slap in, like he would basically put a hand on his face as you'd think, who was the one who decided to do this? as Bell would see both the eye and the brain of Cthulhu basically getting ready to charge in at him, including the Eye of Cthulhu's little like minions. I can't remember their names, but they're basically like little eyes. So Bell would basically charge over there as he would start slicing through all of the monsters, or the Eye of Cthulhu's little, not Eye of Cthulhu, I meant the Brain of Cthulhu's little minions. Everybody would just see that Bell is basically having an easier time, thinking, alright, how the fuck did he do that? So, Bell would basically start targeting the weaker of the two, more specifically the Eye of Cthulhu, with the help of with the Space Dolphin Machine Gun, or the SDMG, as he would start shooting at it, as after a few shots, which was about a freaking minute, well, everybody would see that it started to change. It would start spinning rapidly as the face, or more specifically the eye part, would basically all ripped out. And replacing it was a gigantic ass mouth with sharp ass teeth. As after a while of, doing that, Bell would see that it's in its second stage, as it started rushing towards him at full freaking speed. As Bell would see this, Bell would basically dodge it out of the way, and Bell would decide to start targeting at the Brain Cthulhu. Now grabbing, the Tempest Staff and starting to summon the little, tornadoes, or more specifically, the Sharknadoes, as the Sharknadoes would start shooting out sharks, and everybody is starting to think, alright, for some odd reason, I'm just going to stop right here. They're basically stopping right there, and they're basically starting to, run off doing their whole thing. As currently with the Loki, Hephaestus, and also Freya Familia and nearby the Apollo Familia are watching Bell basically handling this by himself. Lily is also there, basically, by herself, basically watching Bell basically defending himself from these two different bosses, which they think, how the fuck is he able to stop them? And not only that, fighting them. Beth is also there, just basically raging nearby as well. So, as Bell is basically finishing off his final assault on the, on the Brave Cthulhu, as it reveals its weak points, or more specifically, the actual true form, or the second stage of the Brain Cthulhu, which is the beating heart with the eye on it. So, as it transforms into a second stage, it would start creating illusions, as everybody's a bit confused seeing this, as one of them would start, shooting out arrows, which is a random Familia member. It did not do any damage, and the Eye of Cthulhu would just look at him, and let's just say go bye-bye. So he's basically flying off like Team Rocket right now. So, as Bell would see this, Bell would basically say to himself, seriously? As Bell would basically, look at the Eye of Cthulhu, as the Eye of Cthulhu would start, rushing at him once again. As Bell would basically grab the... Wait for a second. As Bell would basically grab the last prism and shoots it at him, similar to, Goku and his Kamehameha wave, or whatever you want to call it, because I don't really care about Dragon Ball, and if all of you guys are wondering, maybe you should try and do a what if about it. No, I hate Dragon Ball and everything, I just don't like it. Especially just because of the whole, aesthetic of it. It's just not really my style, and it's a bit overrated, in my opinion. So try not to, blast me in the comments. So after doing that, it would explode as Bell would basically grab the treasure bag. As Bell would look back and see the not the Eye of Cthulhu, I meant the Brain of Cthulhu basically, raging right now. As it would basically be on its last legs, currently at, a few more health points until it's dead. So, Bell would basically oblige as he would grab the, Daedalus Stormbow and shoots a ton of arrows into its face. And Bell would basically grab the treasure bag and finally defeating both of them. As after doing that, Bell would basically grab the Contaminator from the little, portal, or the little, portal that he gone, or, summoned. He would basically grab the Contaminator and basically start spraying it with some green, some green solution, or whatever it's called, as it would start to turn everything back to normal, thankfully. So, after spraying it, Bell would basically, put it back into its portal as Belle would basically jump down, changing into his normal ass clothing. After Belle did that, Belle was being watched by, the girl with the, hood. As she would basically look up and for us the audience, or you in this case, everybody, or you in this case, would see that the girl seems to have brownish hair and seems to have wolf-like ears. And a wolf-like tail as well. As Belle basically finished defeating them, the Loki, Freya, Hephaestus, and Apollo Familia were in shock. As Belle would say this. It was pretty easy for me, he would basically say nonchalantly, as he would start to leave, as Hestia was a bit worried about him. As Belle would say this. Don't worry, I'm fine, Hestia. As Hestia would say this. Are you sure? I mean, you might get hurt, or you must have gotten hurt or something, right? As Belle would say this. Nope, not a scratch on me. After seeing that he's not even scratched, well, Belle would kind of lie because, he was a bit battered up because, after the whole fight with them. But thankfully, he had a bit of help. More specifically, from a certain, life potion. Yeah, a health potion, to be more precise. As Belle would basically get into the, church, as Belle would basically change into his, normal, sleeping attire as he would fall asleep. We go to a different perspective as the other familiars were just standing there with their jaws wide open. As currently with, Eyes is determined to try and fight him, or at least have a match with him. Bet there is basically foaming at the mouth, and the rest of the other familiars were completely impressed. As after the, Apollo Familia sees this, the Apollo Familia would think, yep, we should bring him into our, Familia instead. Besides, Hestia won't mind. As they would start thinking evilly. As they would basically start to leave, as the Hephaestus Familia would report this to Hephaestus herself. Because, why not? While Hephaestus was being told of this, Hephaestus was making new armor and new weapons from the ores, or the bars, that Belle gave her. Which, she created a little weapon for herself. In fact, it's a new hammer, which is a mix of, the adamantite and also the demonite, and a mix, and the handle, or the actual, I don't really know what to call it. It basically has a chain, as it seems to be made out of crimtane. As she would say this is certainly a brand new hammer for myself, as she would basically use it as a type of weapon, in case of self-defense, as it seems to have also enchantments. When she uses it, it's able to basically create, shockwaves of red and purple energy. She's also able to create, something. Every time when she basically puts up at the person, it would start to change and transform into some sort of dragon head, a fleshy one at that, as it would shoot out a blast of energy, which she doesn't know how that happened, but it seems that it comes from her imagination. So, she would think, this Belle person, he's certainly interesting. She would basically have these dreamy eyes, as she would start to think about Belle a little bit too much, which, let's just say, her familia was a bit concerned about. And one of them, specifically a random member, would think, I think she might be lovesick. And yeah, he's totally right. So yeah, I'm gonna be leaving this episode right off here. And so, I hope you liked the video, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!